Hello, my name is David Copeland from Direct Healthcare Group. I'm here today to show you the hoists and the ceiling track systems for installation. We're going to firstly go through the hoist, progress through the ceiling track systems and the fixings to help you complete an install. So let's firstly look at the hoist. Inside the range there are two products. There's a Rise Atlas and a Rise Basic. Inside there's a couple of different products, so we'll start first with the Rise Basic. The Rise Basic has two products in the range, a 300 and a 440. That denotes the weight limit of the product. The 300 is a 136 kilo, the 440 is a 200 kilo lift. The handset is just a 4-button basic handset, up, down, on and off. To turn the hoist on, you just press the on button, but you can press the up and down button as well to make it start. So up, of course, produces the hoist to go up. If you keep your finger on the button, it will automatically stop at the top. Coming down, you just press the down button. The hoist has got about 2.3 meters of lift, but will stop if it hits an obstruction. It's like my hand. The hoist then needs to make sure you've got the weight on the lifting tape before it will actually start to work. If you want any more lift than the 2.3 meters, we can go up to a meter extension straps, for example in a swimming pool or a high vaulted building. The handset can be connected onto the spreader bar for safekeeping. Yeah. So now we're going to look at the Rise Atlas range. Inside the Rise Atlas range there are two products, and the main difference is the weight limit. We have a Rise Atlas 450 and we have a Rise Atlas 625. That denotes the weight limit. So if we look at the Rise Atlas 450, we have a weight limit of 205 kilos. But it also comes with two different variants. We have a power traverse with a 6-button handset, so the hoist will traverse left and right under its own power. And we have a 450M, which doesn't have that facility. It's a manual traverse left and right, but has the benefit of a quick release system, so we can actually remove the hoist from the ceiling for servicing and repairs, but also we can actually alter the orientation of the hoist to give the best lifting. So what we're going to do now is look at the internals of the Rise Atlas range. So to gain access to the cover, there's a small knurled nut, and we can take that off and gain access to the inside of the hoist. As in most hoists, they're very similar. We have batteries, we have a motor, and we have a PCB board. The difference between the Rise 450M and the 450T is just a traverse motor, that's all. The PCBs are the same on both products. In fact, they're actually the same that fit in the Rise Basic as well. If we look quickly at the PCB, we've got dip switches, so we can alter the settings. We've got a battery, which will hold the memory for any faults. And we also have a service reset button. Because there are 3 limit switches on this product, they all go into the bottom right hand side here, where we can test the functions of all the limit switches. As we mentioned before, the 450M has what we call a quick trolley device, where we can take the hoist off the rail and leave the trolley in the rail to help servicing any maintenance and repairs. You can also rotate the trolley around in different orientations. This simple bracket you can move off the top, has a hexagonal fitting inside, and you can move that round any setting you want to orientate the hoist for its best pickup. So no matter where we put it, we can have the hoist at different angles. So here we are, we're going to look at the Rise Basic. So the fittings are slightly different. To remove the covers, there are 4 small hex screws. Once taking the cover off, you can see the difference between the two hoists. As we said before, the PCB is exactly the same, so that can be altered to fit all our range, so you don't need an excessive stock of PCBs. The main difference is the batteries. We have a sealed lead acid fixing batteries in this product, and the trolley is fixed, and we don't do a powered traverse at all in the Rise Basic. All hoists that we have do arrive as standard with handset charging. You'll get a charger, a cradle to fit on the wall, and then it just plugs directly in. So in this case we've got a Rise Basic handset which we just plug in and gives a positive fitting, and that will charge the hoist. The Rise Basic will arrive with a standard plug and play system with an international or UK adapter. The Rise Atlas will come with a charge lead for your country and a cradle and a handset. If required, we can offer two more options. The first option is what we call end rail charge. So the hoist can then be slid to the end of the rail and charge automatically. The next option that is full rail charging, where once the hoist has been used, once you stop using the hoist will automatically charge anywhere on the rail. But this is a conversion and an extra cost. So we're now going to move on to actually rails and installation system. We've seen the hoists, now what we're going to install the hoist to. So we're going to start off with our three rails that we actually have. The difference, as you can see, is the thickness of rail. We have a H64, a H120 and a H160. All rails have a slot in the top so we can install fixings, and a slot in the bottom for the trolley to go through. Depending on the width from wall to wall depends on what rail we can use. The H64 has a maximum span for 230 kilos of 2.5 meters. The H120, 230 kilo maximum weight, we can go 5 meters. Any more than 5 meters, we move on to the H160 rail, which we can go up to 7 meters. We can actually go a little bit further than 7 meters in a free span if we use the extension brackets, and we can gain about another 0.5 meter. We also produce curves. In our range there are actually 4 curves. There's 12.5 degrees, 22.5 degrees, 45 degrees and a 90 degrees. They all arrive with a 64-degree profile. We don't do thicker profiles. When installing a curve, it must be supported in 3 areas, in the middle and 1 each by the joint. So now we're going to move on to fixings. We have 2 types of fixings, into the ceiling or into the walls. We're going to talk about wall fixing first because it's quite common. In our range we have a range of 4 or 5 different fixings, but we're going to firstly show the most common. This is a wall bracket narrow. It can be installed vertically or we can turn it upside down as long as a rail sits on it. We have 3 holes to put your fixings through onto the wall. Same with the wall bracket wide. The wall bracket wide can be fitted this way or that way. It doesn't matter at all. The next in our fixings are wall bracket parallel. These attach to the wall like so, and the rail runs adjacent to the wall for putting H systems on normally. We have a wall bracket parallel standard and a wall bracket parallel extra wide. Finally, we have the wall bracket plaster. The wall bracket plaster, as you can see, has lots of fixings to it. Every fixing in this must be used if attaching to the wall. Also, down one of these things, it must fit into the batten or the wood behind the wall to make it work correctly and to support the weight. So once we've decided which bracket we were going to use, we then need to assess the wall correctly. We recommend you contacting, if required, people like Hilti or Fisher to supply you with the correct fixing on the wall. We normally recommend, when we're using these brackets, with chemical or resin fixing to the wall, as we feel that's the strongest way to go. So now we're going to talk about installations into ceiling beams or into a ceiling. As you can see in front of me, I have a range of different types. We have normal ceiling fittings, and then we have pendants depending what's required. So now we're going to talk about the ceiling fixings that we've used mainly. We're going to start with the ceiling bracket standard. As you can see, we have 4 holes. The 2 slotted holes are for screwing into the ceiling. The round ones are for installation on the rails. In your kit, you get 2 bolts, a large washer. It is very important that the washer goes on the bolt, and then we slide that into the rail so the washer is underneath the rail. It's very important. When installing the bracket, these brackets have to go on the rail before installation. You drop the bracket on the top, and you put your nut and washer on both ends. I recommend leaving this loose until you have the rail in correct position, so you can have some movement backwards and forwards as required. So next is a universal bracket. The universal bracket is called universal because it can be orientated in different directions. It can be installed this way or that way. We recommend that it's installed that way onto the rail like so. Again, we get the bolt and the washer, making sure the washer is on the inside of the rail, put in, and we can drop the washer in on the top and bolt down. And again, tighten up once finished, and we can orientate this in different directions to help the rail come at different angles. So the next bracket we've got is a quick bracket. The quick bracket needs to be installed into the ceiling first. I would recommend, if possible, fitting 2 spacers between this top of this bracket and the ceiling, because it will aid installation a little bit later. It arrives with 1 bolt, and it doesn't have the large washer in it. So actually the bolt then sits into the rail like so, and the rail is lifted up and attached through the top like so, and installed and finished in that direction. Fitting 2 washers at the top or 2 spacers will let you get that nut and washer on a lot better. So the next version we have are pendants. These are used for uneven ceilings or high ceilings where we've got a H system going through a transition gate onto a straight rail. There's 2 versions in the range. There's pendant Fs and pendant Rs. First one we're going to look at is a pendant F. So here we have a pendant F. The pendant F actually is in 3 versions: a 55, a 105 and a 150. The 55 and 105, 150 denote the length from this to the top to the bottom, the actual length. And it also can be adjusted plus 25 millimeters. So the idea of this, pendant slides into the rail, like so. And that means we can adjust the angle and the height of the rail up and down by tightening up the screw. And once we achieve the correct level, we can then tighten these both up like so. Next, we're going to talk about pendant Rs. Inside the range of pendant Rs, there are 5 different versions giving different lift heights. We start off with 190 millimeters, and we can go up to 2.3 meters. So we've got a large range. The installation is quite simple. You fit the top half into your fixings, and then you insert the bottom half, holding it with a small little screw. Then you level up all the fixings. You can then install the rail using the fixings like we've shown before. Once all that has been complete and your rail's level, you then have to drill an 8mm hole through these two holes at the front and the back and insert a bolt all the way through that comes in the fixing kit. So next we have pendant and angled. It is exactly the same as a pendant are in dimensions and installation. The only difference is on the top we've fitted a bracket that can go in different angles depending on the angle of the ceiling we're installing it to. When installing pendants or anything into a ceiling, we have to do a correct assessment. Depending on the installation, what it's going into, whether it's concrete, beams, brick, we must make sure we're using the correct installation. If it's into a beam, we recommend a 100 by M10 coach bolt. If it's into concrete, we really need to have discussions with Hilti or Fisher what sort of fitting we're going to fit in. Another thing with pendants is the length of the pendant. If we go over 1/2 metre with pendant, we could get some lateral movement on the rail, and what we recommend then is you need to install a support bar. The idea of the support bar, it fits to the bottom of the pendant and then supports itself into the ceiling to stop the lateral movement of the rail. Normally in a system, 2 is enough, 1 at the end to stop forward and backwards and 1 in the middle to stop left and right. So next we're going to move on to adjustable vertical supports. Vertical supports are used in certain situations where we can't screw into a ceiling or into a wall due to the condition of the wall or the manufacturer. They come in 2 sizes, 2.3 metres and 2.8 metres. So you've got a lot of adjustments. I've got a shortened version with me now to show you how it actually works. The first thing you'll do is you measure your floor to ceiling height, take away the thickness of the rail you're using, and then you have to cut your rail down to that size. So this is how we'll do it. Firstly, install the top bracket with the 2 small grub screws, and using a 13mm spanner, just nip that up in the middle. So we've got a little bit of adjustment up and down. Then if required, we have an adjuster kit to go over skirting boards. It goes in the bottom, like so. So once this built up, you can then work out how much you actually need to cut off the bottom. So if I'm using a 120 rail, I'd take a 120 rail off this full length and just cut it off in the middle of the required length. So once it's been installed, we recommend that you use a clamp bracket clip so the rail actually fits on the top of the bracket. This gives better adjustment and easier movement to this. So this slides in the rail and goes in like so. Then we just need to work out what fixings we're going to put through here. So depending on the wall or plasterboard, we can use various different amounts of fixings. Hilti and Fisher do have a good amount what we can actually put in plasterboard. This 2 screws aren't taking the weight of the pressure coming down. The pressure is actually all through the floor, so it must be tightly fitted to a floor. If this actually moves or you've got a little bit of play, you need to pack it underneath. So it's very important that we realise that these 2 screws are only stopping lateral movement of the rail. On completion of the installation, please make sure that the M8 nut is tightened up as tight as you can get it, about 25 Newton meters of torque, and the 2 grub screws underneath with a 4mm Allen key are tightened up as tight as you get them, about 15 Newton meters of torque. So next we're going on to accessories, and the accessory we're going to talk about here is a transition gate. Transition gates come in 3 variants. There's 64 to 64, so the thin rail, 120 to 120 like we have here, and we also do a 64 to 120 rail. Because we don't produce curves in more than a 64 rail, it means we have to reduce the rail down. So basically this is a kit we have here. To assemble the rails is quite simple. What you do is cut your rail to the right length and slide in your transition gate. This has 3 fixings requiring an 8mm Allen key on the top ones, and there's a small adjustment screw with a 5mm. As you can see by the gates, there's a high and a low level, so the idea is as they push together, they'll lock in and join in. Once that goes across, this bar is lifted up so we can get access from one rail to another, and once the rail is then separated, this drops down to lock the rail so it doesn't actually go through, so we have no incidents of rails coming, hoist coming off the end of the rail. Also in the kit is a plunger and a bracket. This fits on your secondary rail, and as it goes across, it locks in like so, so it hits the same adjustment every time. Once installing a transition gate, you do have to do a little bit of adjustment by moving rails left and right, but once installed, it produces a very nice transition from one rail to the other. So next we're going to talk about turntables. There are three variants of the turntable. One we have here, and we've just pivoted a little bit forward so you can see it a little bit better, is a manual version. There are two ropes on there, and as you pull one or pull the other, it'll turn the turntable to a correct exit point. The next version, we use the power from the hoist. So the person takes the hoist onto the turntable. It has pickups from the hoist that hit the pickups on the turntable, and then using the handset from the hoist, we can turn the turntable to our exit point. Last but not least, we have an electronic actuator. The difference between that one is it has to have a button on the wall that you can actually press, and that will rotate the actuator to our exit points. When installing the turntable, this has to be the most pivotal point of this whole installation. This has to be the lowest point so we can get everything level towards it. So installation can be done in two ways. We can actually use threaded bar using loft over kits and unistrut to fit it first, or we can actually use the rails. So if we just rotate this round a little bit, using your 64 rail, you can slide your F55 pendant in. That will slide into the fixing, and then you have a fixing into the ceiling. 4 of these will be perfect for holding the turntable. So next we're going to talk about connecting rails. We have a connecting rail kit like so. It comes with 4 nuts and bolts and 2 plates. The white plate goes at the top, the silver plate actually goes in the rail. So we place a bolt through the bottom, washer on the top, and put your nut on. At this moment, just finger tights, perfect. Then you slide this into your rail. Like so. Then the 2 small roll pins that you need to put in, they fit in at that point there. Push it in as far as you can with your fingers, and then just tap down with a hammer. And once they're in, join the rail together, you just have to knock them in with a rubber hammer, and then we just slide those across like so, and then tighten them up as required. So once we've done most of the installation, we've got a few accessories to always fit an M8 end stop. This is just a simple bolt. We drill through the bottom of the rail. So worst case scenario, if anything happens, the hoist is not going to come off the end of the rail. The next one of that is an end stop with a bumper. The idea of this, as a hoist comes to the end of the rail, instead of hitting something metal, it has a soft piece to it and it doesn't make a lot of noise. Last but not least is an end stop adjustable. This end stop can be moved up and down the rail to stop the hoist in a certain position, to stop it hitting, say, a television that's on the wall. What we have here is a clamp bracket. This is used when we want to put the rail on top of bracket and just slides in the end of the rail like so and tightens down. To aid installation, we also have shims. Shims come in two types. These are for the square type, and we also have a circular type for the quick bracket. They come in 4 different sizes, so we start off with 0.5 mm, 1 mm, 2 mm, 3 mm. This aids getting the rail level if we've got an uneven ceiling. And also, if we're using something like the standard ceiling bracket, to make sure you get that bracket level, not tilted one way or the other, because that can cause problem with the rail in the future. Also, if we've fitted the wall brackets each side and we're just a little bit out, we can pack that up or down to make sure the rail's level. We need to be about 1 mm every metre to a maximum of 4 mm. We also have a few accessories to make things look neat and tidy after we've finished doing the installation. First, I'm going to show you our end caps. This is the H120 end cap, and the idea, if your rail's got an open face, we can just pop the rail in there, tap that on, and that makes it look nice and neat and tidy. We also do that with a 160 and also a 64. We also have a charger cover. The idea of this, we can put insert the charger into here, cover it, install it on the wall so it keeps the charger out of the way and keeps it also neat and tidy. Traverse trolleys. In the range we have 2 traverse trolleys. We have a 3000 flex and a 6500 flex. That denotes the actual length of the traverse trolley. This is a 3000 flex, so between these 2 points is 300 mm. The 6500 flex is normally used on a longer rail with a longer span, so anything over sort of like 5 metres, it's preferable to put the 6500 flex. As standard, both trolleys come with an in-rail charge kit fitted as standard, so that means we don't have to add, we can just remove it if not required. We also have wheels underneath, so once inserted into the rail, there's no lifting from one side of the other. On installing this, we like to have a parallel of no more than 5 mm and to help the trolley go up and down and traverse very easy. The holes are for the installation of a secondary rail. We recommend you to use the 2 external ones where you can. I hope you found the introduction to our ceiling track systems insightful and helpful. If you want any more information, please look at our website or contact our area sales managers.